Welcome everyone to Not That Media. My name is John and today I'm really excited to bring you the first in what I hope is many videos relating to one of my absolute favourite things, Doctor Who. The plan for these videos will become clear over time, as things always do, but these are designed to be short trip videos. So when you see the word short trip in the description, these are designed to be bite-sized, spoiler-free introductions, helpful hints and guides for those people out there who are aware of the Doctor Who canon and obviously its extended universes and spin-offs and all the different media that it covers. But these are designed to give those people that chance to say, okay, where can I start? Big Finish has been running for over 20 years, over 1,000 audios, all of time and space, everything that's ever happened or ever will happen to the Doctor is pretty much covered within the audios. Every companion, every madman, every Dalek, Sontaran, Cyberman has all made appearances within Big Finish. And while some people will argue the canon of Big Finish versus the TV show, I am in the believer that the Big Finish audio drama canon is just as valid as the Doctor Who TV show. And thanks to the toy maker in the giggle, the Doctor's timeline is now a jigsaw, so every continuity counts. So come along with me. Actually, I think for Doctor Who, I think we need to do something a little bit more special. As much as I love my 80s theme, as much as I love my horror t-shirts, I think it's safe to say that when you're doing Doctor Who content, I don't like it. So with that, let's change the desktop theme. Great. And now we will change the logo. And for appearances, let's just change the old t-shirt as well. Perfect. So come along with me as I take my first short trip and we delve into the 9th Doctor's adventures, the end of the beginning. Big Finish is a galaxy-sized investment when it comes to Doctor Who audios and continuity. Luckily, as time goes on, some of these you can pick up for £2.50, some of them you have to pay full price, and sometimes if you get the sale at the right time, you can pick these things up fairly quickly. You can get them, if stocks are still available, on CD and download or purchase download only. I think that the 9th Doctor's adventures, or the 9DAs, are actually a perfect jumping on point for any predominantly new series loving fans. So if you're looking for that opportunity to jump into audio, the 9th Doctor actually serves as a fantastic conduit for that, just as he did in 2005 for the television. So I have to commend not only Big Finish but Christopher Eccleston for that, because in 2 separate iterations of media he has served as the perfect introduction to Doctor Who in different formats, television and audio.
Do you want to come with me? Because if you do, then I should warn you. Because if you do, then I should warn you. You're going to see all sorts of things. Ghosts from the past. Aliens from the future. The day the Earth died in a ball of flame. It won't be quiet, it won't be safe, and it won't be calm. But I tell you what it will be. Trip of a lifetime. Do you want to come with me?
So back in 2005, when that first wonderful trailer appeared of Christopher Eccleston's Doctor, and he said, do you want to come with me? Because if you do, then I should warn you. You're going to see all kinds of things. Ghosts from the past, aliens from the future, the day the Earth died in a ball of flame. It won't be quiet, it won't be safe, but I tell you what it will be. The trip of a lifetime. Doctor Who was back. And the show came back and it was so exciting. And then before we knew it, Christopher Eccleston had quit. The Doctor was back, but Christopher Eccleston was gone. And rumours and circulations and tabloid dish rag came on saying that it was for various reasons. He didn't want to be typecast. He didn't want this. He didn't want that. The BBC, it was unhappy with certain elements of the show, wanted to re-trigger it. It only took years later to find out the true reasons behind that. And I'm not going to go through that video today, maybe one for another day. But Christopher Eccleston left the show. And the gravity of that situation hitting the fans was so hard that Doctor Who was finally returning, and now it was gone. But it wasn't, of course, because the show regenerates. David Tennant appeared and we were off on the trip of a lifetime with David Tennant, and the show was never better at that stage. But we always had, certainly from my perspective in the Whoniverse, that real feeling of frustration and sadness that we had a Doctor who had only just scratched the surface and he was lost in time. So fast forward to 2013 and the Day of the Doctor was on its way, the 50th anniversary, bringing together all of the new series Doctors that they could. We had David Tennant, Matt Smith and a new incarnation, John Hurt. That's what we got on screen. But originally Stephen Moffat was penning a script that did contain Christopher Eccleston, and there had been the beginnings of communication with Christopher Eccleston to bring him back to the show for a one-off special. Christopher Eccleston was open to the dialogue, but it very quickly broke down, and then he was heard later on the radio saying that he doesn't bathe in the same bathwater twice, which for fans such as me was the nail in the coffin to say, okay, Christopher Eccleston is never coming back to this show. Whatever happened behind the scenes is clearly so terrible that he just doesn't want to do it. As a fan, I was disappointed, but at the same time, we got the War Doctor, who was a fantastic incarnation in his own right, and more on him another day. So in 2020, we were hit with a global pandemic. The world was shut down. The streets were empty. The cupboards and the food was bare in the supermarkets. It felt like something like a plot from The Master or something. It was insane to think that this happened. The country was sick. The country needed healing. Arguably, what we needed was entertainment. So what we needed right then was a doctor. And on the 9th of May 2020, the absolute impossible happened, and Christopher Eccleston was announced to be returning as the 9th Doctor within Big Finish audio.
Humanity, locked on a single planet, one time, one place. I don't know how you stand it. It's a big universe out there, and you haven't even scratched the surface. Well, it's time to change that. You're going to hear amazing things. You'll go from the Firth of Forth to alien worlds, to the Sphere of Freedom and a giant necropolis. You'll hear musicians in Paris play deadly games, meet monsters on movie sets and the real Macbeth. There'll be new enemies and old friends, people to lose and people to save, and every day the universe at stake. I can't promise it'll be safe. In fact, it'll be very dangerous indeed. But it'll be the greatest journey you'll ever take, I promise you. It'll be fantastic. So tell me, do you want to come on board?
The absolute dream had happened. After so long, so many false starts, so many promises of maybe, he was coming to Big Finish. And Chris Eccleston said, and I'll quote, "After 15 years, it will be exciting to revisit the Ninth Doctor's world, bringing back to life a character I love playing." Now, there had been attempts to get hold of Chris Eccleston with Big Finish before, and I believe, again, he'd always refused. I believe, and again, you do your own research if you wish to, I believe that there was a perception that he thought the fans didn't like him or didn't want him, and eventually he started to make some convention appearances and became aware of the fact that not only was he welcome at these things, but the fans loved the Ninth Doctor and wanted to see more. So the Big Finish chairman, and I will quote exactly what he said, Jason Haig-Ellery said, I first talked to Christopher about returning to the role of the Doctor at the Gallifrey 1 convention in February of 2020. Christopher said he was enjoying meeting fans and was so pleased that his Doctor was being remembered so fondly. He indicated that he would be open to discussions with Big Finish. And then the pandemic happened and time moved both quickly and very slowly. Over recent months, ideas have been exchanged and discussions had. I am so pleased that Christopher has decided to return to the role with us, and I'm excited to welcome him to the Big Finish family as we discover the new adventures of the Ninth Doctor. And to finish this little bit of quoting off, Big Finish's creative director Nicholas Briggs added, "Working with Chris was a very special time for me, the beginning of my Doctor Who TV career. So, writing for and directing him feels incredibly exciting. He's such a powerful performer and it'll be amazing to work with him again." So as soon as this happened, a million questions started flying around the Whoniverse. Where would these adventures take place? Who would his companion be? Would he be meeting Daleks? Would he be meeting classic monsters? What do these stories mean for the continuity of the Ninth Doctor? Because in television terms, the Ninth Doctor's story is actually quite packed together and quite a tight programme when you watch those 13 episodes back to back. The Ninth Doctor has very little space in his adventures for new adventures, and Big Finish, to its absolute credit, is very good at finding those cracks and those holes and putting those stories in there here and there that fit within the continuity and don't break things. So with that background, thank you for listening to that, I'm going to jump now into where Big Finish is with the Ninth Doctor adventures. To date, with the Ninth Doctor, there have been 12 box sets. Split across these sets within each is 3 stories ranging from 60 to 70 minutes. They first started with Ravagers on the 13th of May 2021, and at the time of recording, the final of these sets in Series 3 with Star-Crossed came out on the 29th of May 2024. There is one appearance of the Ninth Doctor outside of his Ninth Doctor Adventures range, and as newbies, beginners, I don't recommend running to this release, and I'll explain why later. So one of the very first questions that a lot of people ask is, where do these stories fit into the continuity? And at the time of the announcement, Big Finish was very clear where all of these stories were going to be placed, and subsequently in the interviews on the documentary disc, they are very clear where these are placed. But there is still to this day a little bit of fan confusion about where these stories take place. So to give you the chronology, these stories take place after, at some point after, it should be said, his depicted regeneration in the Day of the Doctor from the War Doctor to the Ninth Doctor. These are not the first adventures of the Ninth Doctor, is what I would say. So there is not a normal post-regenerative episode within these box sets. These take place at some point after the regeneration, but long before Rose. So there is absolutely no homework required when it comes to Christopher Eccleston's timeline placement. Every story takes place after Day of the Doctor, before Rose. There is no formal companion within these. Sometimes it can be difficult with Big Finish to actually ascertain where you should or shouldn't be listening. Should I listen to this Fifth Doctor having never heard a Perry story before? Should I listen to a McCoy without an Ace story? You don't need to worry about that with Christopher Eccleston's Ninth Doctor. The Ninth Doctor, as a result of his survival complex and the guilt of the Time War, is travelling alone. Although he has returned to using the name of the Doctor, he is not necessarily the full Doctor yet. So he is travelling around, just enjoying himself, fixing things and getting involved where he can. He's still healing from the war. So he is not looking for a full-time companion. That's not to say that every episode does not have a person who could quite possibly be a companion. And again, trying to stay spoiler-free as possible, there are even a couple of circumstances where it feels like a particular audio character is going to become a companion, but the Ninth Doctor is very quick to shut that down. There are no Daleks in the Ninth Doctor adventures. There was a decision made very quickly and very early on, which I'm in total agreement with, was that the Daleks are not to make an appearance. The decision was made to maintain the power and the continuity and the emotion of the Dalek episode. That moment where Christopher Eccleston first sees a Dalek, he is so terrified, he is so angry, you see the fear in his eyes. That is undone if the Doctor has already had 25 audio adventures with Daleks and they're popping up every 5 minutes. So the continuity and the sanctuary of that moment is maintained. The Ninth Doctor's adventures contains very little Time War content. This is not necessarily a bad thing because, again, the Ninth Doctor within the confines of the TV show takes time to explain to Rose how his planet is gone and it burnt like the Earth and all this wonderful stuff that we would later hear. It can be somewhat undone or undermined by having the Time War earlier. Now, Christopher Eccleston, as part of his return to the show, had the opportunity to not impose conditions, but make requests and push where he would like the continuity of his character to go somewhat. He wanted to play it a lot lighter and much more positive, a injured person looking for hope, looking for inspiration, looking for confidence, looking to be the Doctor again. And the Time War and the Daleks tend to bring out the very worst in his Doctor. Fans of Dalek will obviously recall the second he sees one, he's pointing a gun at it. He's quite happy to kill Daleks left, right and centre in The Parting of the Ways, but it's one of those situations where it would undermine the power of the show if the Ninth Doctor is too heavy and too dark. So again, it's all about the journey, all about fleshing out the character. With Christopher Eccleston only doing one television series and Russell T Davies's desire at the launch to not alienate new audiences with classic companions and classic monsters except for Daleks, it means that tragically the Ninth Doctor didn't get to have meetings with old favourites in the way that Tennant, Smith, Capaldi and Whittaker later would. And whilst Big Finish didn't go overboard with this, the arrival of the Ninth Doctor in audio meant that we were able to have some of those moments and have the Ninth Doctor meet some old friends, such as Brigadier Alistair Gordon Lethbridge Stewart, now depicted in his Sarah Jane Adventures attire and very much retired. Liv Chenka, an audio companion to the 8th Doctor, Paul McGann, who has been doing about 12 years worth of audio at the time of recording and is a very popular fan favourite. There is a one-off appearance from Alpha Centauri, one of the oddest characters in the universe, and for some reason she keeps coming back every so often. So yeah, Alpha Centauri for some reason. That wonderful time-travelling archaeologist that we all know and love. She has met so many Doctors. She has had so many adventures. She has done it all. I'm talking, of course, Bernice Summerfield. Now, TV fans may be a little bit confused and not know who Bernice Summerfield is. I will cover her on another video another time. If I was to sum her up in one sentence, I would say the original River Song. And for the final box set, we got to have that bucket list item. Yes, I've already going to say it, the Ninth Doctor and River Song. River Song makes an appearance in the final of the box sets. Now, these companions, or one-off appearances from companions, are very important to the stories. They're not just there to have fun and just be like, oh great, the Ninth Doctor gets to meet this person. I believe they are very carefully considered and chosen because their characters and their encounters and their history with the Doctor serve as mirrors, reminders, omens of the Ninth Doctor's time, and serve to actually remind the Doctor who he is, what he was, where he's going, without having to be too heavy on the continuity. You can meet all of these characters in the Ninth Doctor adventures without having any homework done whatsoever. You don't need to know who Bernice Summerfield is. And in fact, like Sarah Jane would be in School Reunion, I actually think that these stories are written and handled in a way to depict where are these characters at this point in the television's continuity. Bernice Summerfield, for example, we're used to meeting her from Doctors 1 through 8, but what would happen if Bernice Summerfield showed up in the new series? What would happen if Liv Chenka, who has a partner who works for Torchwood, was to make an appearance in the television show? These audio stories depict that, and they're really special. Now, that's not to say that the Doctor's adventures require lots of fan service and old companions showing up. There are plenty of new characters, there are plenty of new stories. Again, I'm not going to deep dive into them. But those of you who are interested in the monsters will probably want to know, what did the Ninth Doctor do in the audios, because on television he only met the Daleks. And I remember one day there was a news recording, and one of the things that somebody was desperate to ask Christopher Eccleston is, are you going to meet the Cybermen? And his answer was, no Cybermen, you'll have to wait for them, kind of a situation. So I'm happy to be able to say that as part of many different monsters, the Ninth Doctor did come face to face with some classic and not so classic foes, such as two separate iterations of the Cybermen. One you could say was a Cyberman in the same kind of vein as Dalek, in that it had an update, it had a look that would be applicable to the Eccleston era, but also he met the Mondasian Cybermen, but no spoilers. He encounters the Sontarans. Yes, Dan Starkey, the old favourite, is back again, and he plays the Sontarans. There was an episode with the Sea Devils. The Ninth Doctor meeting the Sea Devils was very interesting. Another fan favourite was the Vashna Narada. The Ninth Doctor, although not wanting to do darker stories, having Christopher Eccleston meet perhaps arguably one of the darkest of the New Who monsters, the Vashna Narada, was a really interesting tale. And finally, he met the Ice Warriors. Again, I'm not massive on the Ice Warriors, but I understand their place within history. So old friends and old foes feature quite a lot in the Ninth Doctor Adventures, but like I said, we've got 4 box sets of 3 CDs, so you've got 36 separate hour stories. Across those, there's only 5 appearances, so there's plenty of new material, plenty of one-off stories. We get the Ninth Doctor at Christmas, we get the Ninth Doctor doing all kinds of things. I really recommend this range. And one of the joys of this range that is in many ways is the Ninth Doctor is an anomaly when it comes to fan expectations, and he doesn't always act the way or come across the way that other Doctors do. So I actually think that the Ninth Doctor's audio range stands somewhat on its own compared to the others. Like the Ninth Doctor himself, Christopher Eccleston has stated on record that he likes the idea of his Doctor being the loner, which is why he doesn't do the multi-Doctor stories and things like that. These feel very self-contained. They're very easy access. You can go in. Ideally, you want to start at the beginning with Ravagers and work your way through them. But if you did want to just jump into the last set because you want him to, hear him meet River Song, you can do that. These are really accessible box sets, but they are not necessarily what you would expect, which is what I think the Ninth Doctor is all about. So in summary, we've got a whole section of the Doctor's life, the Ninth Doctor's life, in audio between his beginning and his arrival on the TV show. These are 36 stories that, with the exception of 1 or 2 of them, that's a 2-parter, and the last one with River Song, none of them are interconnected. You can listen to them as and when you wish to. So if you are a Christopher Eccleston fan and you're not interested in listening to the rest, but you want to hear the Ninth Doctor meeting River Song, jump straight into Star-Crossed. If you want to work out, if you're a Brigadier fan, go straight for the Brigadier box set. These sets do not require, unlike many other Big Finish series, a requirement to listen to absolutely everything in chronological order so you understand it. I recommend you start at the beginning and work your way through, but as with Big Finish, these are luxury items when it comes to purchases. These are not on the cheap side. There's always sales and things like that, but I recommend starting at the beginning of Eccleston's time and working your way through it personally. But the choice is entirely yours. What I would say to kind of sum up this range is they are very special. If you are a fan of Christopher Eccleston, be it a fan who was 19 at the time when it came out or a 6-year-old when it came out, the fact that we have an opportunity to come back to the Ninth Doctor and have Eccleston give us more and show us what he could have been, or what the show would have been if he had had the opportunity to encounter classic monsters and classic companions, being put in different situations that question the Ninth Doctor's motives sometimes. There are some situations where, like the Ninth Doctor himself, he's a bit of an anomaly within the Doctors, so he acts differently. You would assume, oh, well, the Doctor's just going to do this, and he doesn't. He doesn't always take the side of the humans. He doesn't always take the side of the good guys. That's not to say he's a bad Doctor or things like that, but like the Ninth Doctor, he's not a black and white Doctor. He's a very grey character, and these audios really sum it up. They get some of the best guest casts you can get on these, so seriously, I really recommend the Ninth Doctor Adventures. One thing that I do want to spend a moment going over, and it will only be a moment, is that there is one appearance of Christopher Eccleston's Ninth Doctor, played by Christopher Eccleston, outside of the 9DAs, and this is not recommended for beginners. It might feel like something you want to jump into, but I really don't recommend it. That's not to say I don't want you listening to Big Finish, but it's not easy for introductions. It's part of the Once and Future 60th anniversary celebrations for Doctor Who that Big Finish put on. It is a 7 or 8 part, because we have the 8th part coming out later in the year, but at the time of recording, a 7-part story which involves all the audio Doctors and then some making appearances as the Doctor is injured by a degeneration gun and flitters through his incarnations trying to figure out what has happened. Now, I don't want to spoil anything, but due to certain events, not only does he visit his old selves, he visits his future selves as well. So at one point, the Ninth Doctor, it makes an appearance and he crashes, quite literally time crashes, into another TARDIS and is introduced to another Doctor, but not any Doctor you've seen on television or you will have read about in any of the television-based content, but in fact a totally different incarnation of the Doctor from another universe, who is nicknamed the Unbound Doctor and played by the late, great David Warner. This is the closest we will ever get, I believe, to a multi-Doctor audio story with Christopher Eccleston. That is a very complicated story. I believe it is part 6 of part 7. So if you jump straight into that as a fan, you may be very quickly alienated. I will cover Once and Future in a later video because I do think there's a lot of good stuff there. But for newbies or beginners, I really don't recommend you actually go for that release until you are firmly planted within the world of Big Finish. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. It wasn't designed to be full of spoilers and a deep dive and a history of the show. I just wanted to start to give fans who are new to the world of Doctor Who or are long-term TV fans looking to get that little bit more out of Doctor Who, a window to say, okay, here's a jumping on point that I can get into. The Eccleston era is self-contained, like his show itself. There are nods to the past, there are nods to the future, there is continuity that you don't need to necessarily be fully aware of. You can meet some old friends that might then branch out to other audios. Like I say, Bernice Summerfield, Liv Chenka are 2 really good examples of audio companions. So it does serve as a nice opportunity to get into this universe. I do have plans for more videos. I do want to tackle the bigger subjects. There's much more to do. Big Finish has covered the Time War quite extensively, Gallifrey quite extensively, the Unbound universe. There's so many different iterations of Big Finish, but this is just the very first short trip. If you liked what you saw, please do like and subscribe. Do comment, do follow the Facebook page. There will be lots more Doctor Who content alongside theme park, horror, physical media. So until next time, all I can say is, allons-y.